next application is page 55 to 58, and application number 25/0369. Right. The site is 12 Alderine Court, Newport, NP20 5GF. It's in the Alderine ward, and the ward member is Councillor Druitt, Evans and Councillor Fairweather. The proposal is the construction of a porch. The main considerations: design and residential amenity. The recommendations from officers is to grant with conditions. Okay. The plan presenting officer is Emma Blinkworth, and we do not have any public speakers or any ward members speaking on behalf or against this application. This was brought to the committee as the applicant is a Newport City Councillor. Okay, I'll open this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, clarification, if I may, please, Chair. Did the applicant request it, or did the officer?
It's because it's a councillor. You've got to. It automatically goes through planning. It's got to come before officers. Any conflicts? Okay.
Okay. I don't have an issue with that, but I have an issue with other things. But I will clarify that with the officer later on, if I may, please.
Yeah. Any questions after?
Nothing to do with this application, but.
No, that's protocol.
Thank you.
Okay. Over to the officer.
Thank you, Chair. So the application seeks consent for the construction of a porch at the front of 12 Alderine Court. As mentioned, the application is presented to committee as the applicant is an elected ward member. The application site is a semi-detached property situated at the end of the Alderine Court cul-de-sac, located within the Alderine ward. Multiple apartment blocks are located to the southwest, and other semi-detached properties to the northeast of the application site, so there's quite a varied street scene. Other semi-detached dwellings along Alderine Court have carried out similar forms of development as that proposed, including the neighbouring property at 10 Alderine Court that had consent granted for the flat roof porch in 2022. It is noted that there was a previous application granted with conditions on the application site back in 2015. However, this was not implemented and has now lapsed. As mentioned, the application is for the construction of a porch with a lean-to roof. The plans on the screen detail the height and design of the porch. The key issues arising from this application are visual amenity and residential amenity. In terms of visual amenity, there is no architectural consistency between the semi-detached pair of dwellings or amongst the street scene itself. Due to the scale of the development, it is considered that the porch will be subservient to the host dwelling, and the porch would not disrupt any symmetry between the application site and semi-detached neighbour. The materials appear to match the host dwelling. However, a condition will be added to ensure that this remains the case. It is not anticipated that the porch would impact the character and appearance of the host dwelling or wider street scene. In terms of residential amenity, due to the location and scale of the development, it would not prejudice neighbouring properties by loss of light or overbearing impact. It is noted that there is a window proposed in the side elevation facing 10 Alderine Court, as shown on screen. However, this window is high level and obscure glazed as it serves a bathroom. The two roof lights on the roof slope do not face any other neighbouring properties. As a result, there would not be any impact on the privacy of neighbouring occupiers. The recently published report did indicate that there would be a condition added to secure a biodiversity enhancement scheme. Since this, information on this by way of a bat box and wild planting has been submitted, which is considered commensurate to the scheme. As such, the condition will be changed to be a directive rather than a submission condition. As a result of the aforementioned points, it's recommended that the application is granted with conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Committee like to raise any questions on the application? Councillor Watkins.
in regards to the scale of the porch, where does that sit in regards to permitted development?
So a porch can be 3 square metres, and this is larger than that, so the porch does require planning permission.
So, although the applicant is a city councillor, could he have had the development under permitted development because it's larger than required? Okay, thank you, Chair, that's all.
Okay. Councillor Horton, your hand raised?
It was, yes. Just a very simple one. If it wasn't a councillor, would this be in front of us right now, or is it solely, and you would have granted with conditions anyway, or is it just because it's a councillor? That's just my question.
I believe it is down to being a councillor. That's why it's brought forward for the. Yeah, it is to be open and transparent.
No, completely understand that. Then I'd move that we vote in accordance with the officer sent, please, Chair.
Okay, so we've got a proposer to the granting and following the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Perkins, second. Can we have a show of hands, please, for those who's in favour of the application? I believe that's unanimous. Thank you. I believe that is now granted. Moving on.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't see the point in us dwelling on that one, if that was the reason.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Now we move on to item 5, page 60 to 73. The application number 25/0412. The site is 35 Liscombe Street, Newport, NP 190HQ. It's in the ward of Liswerry, and the ward members are Councillor Howells, Morris, Peterson and Sterry. The proposal is for a change of use from a 4-bedroom dwelling, class 3 use, to a 4-bedroom house in multiple occupation, as class 4 use. The main considerations are the flood risk, character, residential amenity, parking, social cohesion and fear of crime. The recommendation were granted with conditions. The planning officer presenting this application is Joanne Davison, East Area Planning Manager, and this was brought to committee at the request of Councillor Sterry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning all. So this application is, as the Chair has said, for change of use of a 4-bedroom residential property to a 4-bedroom house in multiple occupation. A HMO, as you know, is a house occupied by people who are usually unrelated and have private bedrooms but shared facilities, such as kitchens, living areas and bathrooms. You can see the property we're looking at today, shaded in blue in the centre of the screen. I can confirm that the property is currently vacant. So, roughly in the centre of the screen here, this is an aerial shot showing the wider environment. The property is a mid-terrace dwelling house. It fronts Liscombe Street, which can be accessed via Henson Street and Cromwell Road. As you can see from the slide, it is situated in an urban, predominantly residential area, which is characterised by rows of terrace dwellings. The property is located approximately 100 metres from a local convenience store, and a similar distance to public transport links, primarily on Corporation Road, for example. The site scores highly in sustainability terms when examined against the Council's parking supplementary planning guidance, being within such close proximity to frequent bus services and close walking distance to local shops and services, also schools and open spaces, some of which you can see on that aerial view. Now, the layout provides a lounge, dining room, kitchen and 2 bathrooms at ground floor and 4 bedrooms at first floor. On the left, you've got the existing floor plan, or floor plans. On the left, the ground floor, on the right, the first floor, and then on the right half of the slide is the proposed. A little bit of spot the difference. So at first floor, there's no change at all. 4 bedrooms now, 4 bedrooms proposed. On the ground floor, we do have some adaptation. So at the moment, we've got 2 living spaces, one at front here, one at back, but knock through into 1 room, as you can see. So on the proposed, what is actually going to happen is we're going to have an adaptation with the inclusion of a 2nd bathroom. So there's a bathroom at the back already in this sort of annex here where my cursor is, and the applicant is going to add another larger or primary bathroom and take some of that living space at ground floor. The property also has an enclosed rear garden. Apologies. Let's just show you that while we're here. Okay, so this is a block plan. That building you can see at the rear extent, there is an indication of a cycle store. We don't actually have full details of that in terms of elevation, so you'll see a recommended condition on your reports to seek that. You'll also see an indication of bin storage in that back area, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about waste in the presentation. So the property is currently a house and remains a house. In this case, a maximum of 4 occupants are proposed. As a 4-bedroom dwelling, we can typically expect 4 or 5 occupants, albeit these will normally be related. In a HMO, like a dwelling, the occupants are expected to live as a household, sharing facilities in the property. However, typically they will occupy with tenancy agreements or contracts per room or per occupant. The personal details of occupants themselves is not a planning matter. Neither is the reputation, the background, the business, etc. of the landlord or owner. The local planning authority will and can only concern itself with land use planning considerations in the public interest and consequently concerns for the identity of future HMO occupiers, the details of rental agreements and charges, the history and personal details of the landlord, and other similar matters will not ordinarily inform a planning application assessment and are not considered relevant to this case. Some of these matters are, however, regulated by other parties. So the main planning considerations of this application are the potential impacts of the change of use on parking provision and highway safety, as well as the impact on the character and amenity of the surrounding area and neighbouring properties and flood risk. Impact on the character and amenity of the surrounding area and neighbouring properties can also include matters of social cohesion and fears of crime. Importantly, though, the weight that can be afforded to these considerations is dependent on several criteria. These include that they must be, the fear must be objectively justified, the fear must have some reasonable basis, and the fear must relate to the proposed land use. That's in planning terms, of course. Assumptions about the use associated with crime or antisocial behaviour, etc., and not supported by evidence as to the character of the future occupiers cannot be afforded significant weight in our decision-making. We know all this because this has all been tested in the courts. Okay, so the proposal is within the urban area. It has a lawful residential use and is located in a sustainable area. These factors accord with the principles set out in Strategic Policy SP1 of the adopted local development plan. If we move on then to the key policy in HMO terms, and that's policy H8 of the adopted local development plan, which relates to self-contained accommodation and houses in multiple occupation, and says that HMOs will only be permitted if specified criteria are met. The full wording of the policy is set out at paragraph 7.4 of your assessment. The adopted HMO SPG, which must also be afforded substantial weight in decision-making, states that clusters of HMOs can alter the composition of a community and detract from local visual amenity. The guidance introduces a threshold above which HMOs are considered to detract from the character of the area. In general, the Council will not support a planning application that would take the number of HMOs considered as a proportion of the local housing stock above a specified limit. This site is located within the 10% threshold area. When taking a 50-metre radius, you can see it on the screen, from the address point of the application site, the full front elevations of 38 properties are caught in that blue shaded area. There are no existing HMOs registered within that area. Therefore, if the application were to proceed, the 10% threshold would not be exceeded. Consequently, HMO concentration levels are not grounds to refuse planning permission in this case. By way of a background exercise that officers have undertaken separately and not reported, we've also looked at a 100-metre radius from the property. Okay, so that's not set out in supplementary planning guidance, but as a background exercise we've done it. And again, there's no HMOs within a 100-metre radius of the property. Okay, so turning to the amenity considerations for any future occupiers of the HMO unit. Let's go back a second to the floor plan. There is a communal living room and a kitchen located at the ground floor. Access to the rear garden is provided to residents, and as I mentioned before, bike storage provision can be controlled by condition. No external alterations other than the bike store element are proposed, and no changes that may encourage this property to look different to others in the street. Okay, so some photographs. This is the rear garden as it stands, and then stood in the rear garden looking back at the property as it stands. And we've also got some internal photos, and I'll run through those as I proceed with the presentation. So, as you know, the HMO standards state that a single bedroom should be at least 6.51 square metres. Shared kitchens and living rooms for up to 5 people should be 7 square metres and 10 square metres respectively. And I can confirm that all bedrooms and living spaces on this application meet or exceed this requirement. We go into a little bit more detail on the sizes actually in the actual written report. All rooms contain windows providing adequate light and ventilation for occupiers, with access to a good-sized rear garden, and all of this weighs in its favour. The accommodation would provide an adequate standard of amenity for occupiers. So I'll just show you some of the internal photos. There is undergoing renovation, or was undergoing renovation at the time of site visit. So this view is looking at the kitchen, galley-type kitchen leading through to a back sort of toilet or bathroom space, and beyond that door is an access out onto the rear yard or garden. This is taken in the front ground floor living space. Sort of stood in the stair area looking back towards the hall and the main door. This is one of the upstairs rear bedrooms. This is one of the upstairs front bedrooms. Another one of the upstairs rear bedrooms. And another upstairs front bedroom. Moving on in relation to parking and highway matters, the existing dwelling has 4 bedrooms, and this generates a parking demand of 3 spaces. That's according to our adopted supplementary planning guidance. There is no parking on site, no opportunity to create it. The 4-bedroom HMO would require 1 space per bedroom, a total of 4 spaces, and strictly speaking a visitor space, and therefore it does result in increased parking demand according to the adopted supplementary planning guidance. However, we know, we've said this many times before, that certain factors must be afforded substantial weight when we're assessing parking impacts, notably whether or not the site is sustainable, and I've already spoken about that. In this case, officers confirm that the site is sustainable. An officer site visit and a parking survey that supports the application also confirm that on-road parking is available to meet the uplift in parking expectations stated in the supplementary planning guidance. You'll see the Council's highway officer raises no objection on highway grounds. So this image is a relatively recent image. I've just put it onto a 3D view taken from Google. It's probably about 2 years old, but the property is around where my cursor is now. So it's just giving you an idea of how the road network works. Obviously, you can see plentiful, unrestricted on-road parking on this view even. These are a couple of site visit photographs taken by officers as well. Appreciate they're in the daytime. And this is the property we're looking at here. So it has, parking on the doorstep. I'll leave it there a second. In relation to cycle parking, so I mentioned this earlier, this is the same as existing in that anyone who has a bicycle will need to store it in the property or in the back garden, thereby wheeling it through the property. This is the existing situation, of course, as a house, and it doesn't change. Existing parking problems and concerns regarding a worsening of the existing situation and subsequent highway safety matters have been raised as significant concerns within the resident objections and also the local councillor response. Parking, as I've shown you, was observed by officers at the time of recent site visits, and while we can appreciate this will be in high demand because there's no dedicated off-road parking spaces for these units, there were on-street parking spaces within very close walking distance of the site. It is appreciated that parking demand will vary depending on the day and the time, and reliance on on-street parking may mean that occupiers are unable to park right in front of their properties sometimes. However, we know that inspectors have confirmed this is not justification to refuse planning permission, and the availability of on-street parking on neighbouring streets is sufficient. That said, as I say, during the site visits, officers easily parked on street, close to the site, and the parking survey that supports the application confirms availability of parking to meet demand at peak residential parking periods within a walkable distance of the site. So typically, parking demand in the parking survey is at its highest during the very early morning. The parking survey found that at least 21 parking spaces were available within the surrounding area to accommodate any increase in parking demand at 1 a.m. on 3 consecutive weekday mornings. Capacity of on-road parking ranged between 76 and 83% at this time. So in short, availability of parking is not evidently a robust reason to refuse permission in this case and in officer view. In terms of flood risk considerations, the planning application proposes highly vulnerable development as a change of use of existing highly vulnerable residential property into 4-bed HMO. There would be no intensification of the use and notably no ground floor bedrooms. So NRW note that all bedrooms would be at first floor and therefore offers no objection. The proposals comply with TAN 15 and policy SP3 of the Council's development plan. So I said I'd cover waste, and that's what I'm going to do now, and talk a little bit more about that, because I know members have previously expressed some interest in that aspect insofar as HMOs are concerned. So we can see from the photo the property has no front forecourt, and like neighbouring properties appears to rely on a wheelie bin being kept on the footpath. This is the way in which waste would be stored as a dwelling, and the use as a HMO would not stand out in this respect. Given the size of the HMO having 4 bedrooms and 4 occupants, and you'll note we propose a condition to limit occupancy, the waste receptacles are no different to the use as a 4-bedroom house. This is also confirmed by the waste comments that we've reported. So a 120-litre bin for the 4-bedroom house and a 120-litre bin for a 4-bedroom HMO. Same. So whilst opportunities for bin storage are provided in the rear garden, you'll recall it was sort of indicated on the block plan, we know that the street generally does not store certainly wheelie bins in this way. And on the whole, there is quite a bit of evidence from photos, and I'll run through them now, of neat storage of bins and boxes to the front of each property. As I've said, the number and the size of bins and the number of boxes for the proposed HMO is exactly the same as the use as a dwelling. Now, officers have sought additional clarification from colleagues on the prevalence of complaints linked to waste and the use of properties as HMOs. And we have been informed that in relation to complaints specifically about waste generated by HMOs, the Council has not received any that directly reference this issue. Now, waste receptacle provision is based on the number of residents and the configuration of the property. That's what our website tells us. The website also tells us that if a household has between 5 and 7 people resident, the council may switch their wheelie bin to a 180-litre bin. But that's not the case here. This is for 4 occupants. If the property has 8 or more people resident, the council may switch the property to a 240-litre bin. But again, that's not the case here. Any property at all, dwelling or otherwise, can apply for additional recycling bins and boxes. So that would, like I say, include it as a house or as a HMO. So in short, officers consider there to be no information that would justify an objection to this application on waste-related grounds. So the photo that's on the screen now is current. So that's a very recent photo indeed. This is taken in 2023, assumedly at a point when the property was occupied previously as a dwelling, and it's really just to show you what I was talking about, that neat storage of bins on the pavement to the frontage. I've taken this one from Street View, not looking directly at the property, but just going a little bit further along the street to show you that's very characteristic of this street. So the change of use would not result in an exceedance of the threshold set out in the Council's guidance, and it's considered that the proposals would not result in a demonstrable impact to the character of the area for all the reasons I've cited. The proposals would potentially increase demand for parking when assessed against the Council's adopted parking and SPG, but this parking can be accommodated safely on street. Furthermore, the site is located within a sustainable location, within close proximity to shops and services, and with good transport links. As such, it is considered that the proposals would not result in an adverse impact to highway safety or neighbouring amenity. The proposals are acceptable, having regard to flood risk matters, and and it is recommended to members that the application is granted, subject to the stated conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could I start off with the questions regarding, you mentioned about cycles. Because the matter is now get everybody off the cars on public transport and cycle to work and the like. Is there a cycle store, a storage facility for anybody had a bike, push bike? Is that being proposed?
Yes, Chair. Is the square you can see on the block plan there in the back garden? As I mentioned, we'd need more details if members were very keen to secure that, because we've got no elevations. So just looking at the photo, it would go against the close board fence here.
Right, that's okay. Right. Thank you. Members, would you like to raise questions? Councillor Perkins?
Well, you said there was no change to the upstairs and there's 4 bedrooms, but could you give us the sizes of those bedrooms?
I'm going to stop sharing a second because I'm certain this is actually in the written assessment, but I'm going to find the paragraph number for you. Bear with me.
I just asked because you said there was no changes upstairs, and on the sales bit for the property, it says the 1 bedroom is 1.46 metres by 2.41 metres, and surely that's not big enough to be a bedroom for an adult.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so what I had in mind, sorry, was paragraph 7.8 on page 68. So we've given measurements there of what the standards expect, but also what the plans show based on our measurements of the plans. Okay, so we say the kitchen is 8.75 square metres. The living room is 13.75 square metres, and the smallest of the 4 bedrooms is 6.52 square metres, with the guidance recommending a minimum of 6.51 square metres. So that one's close, but nonetheless meets the standard according to our measurements.
So is that measurement you've been given or measurements you took?
That's measurements based on the scale drawings that we've received.
Okay. Yeah. Any other councillors? I can't see any hands up. Oh, Councillor Watkins? Yeah, I've seen it now, but right. Go with Councillor Watkins first. You.
In regards to this, following on from Councillor Perkins, the space per bedroom, I noticed that you've got a condition in there for 4 persons only in a property. Is there a difference in the square metres in regards to double beds, or 2 people in a bedroom? Is there a different square meterage?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I would like to think there is. I mean, just to add to this theme, it's part of the reason why we like to get into these properties, to observe the size of the rooms ourselves, because Obviously, we've taken the measurements off the scale drawings, but sometimes when you get into properties, you see things that aren't necessarily commensurate with the drawings or accurate. In this case, nothing was awry. Each bedroom actually is a single bedroom based on our photographs. So it completely lines up with the 4 bedrooms, 4 occupants proposal. And I think a condition limiting it to 4 occupants is absolutely justified.
Okay, I agree with that, Chair, but it was just a curiosity for future reference for members of the committee that if there is a difference in the square meterage, you know, it would be an idea for us to find out. If you could come back to the committee.
Appreciate, we'll check, and we'll ensure we put that additional information in the next eitemau report. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Go on to Councillor Horton.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could, sorry, if you could just bring up the diagrams you've got up the upstairs, please, with the dimensions on.
Sorry, Councillor, can you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry, you mentioned you've got the drawings, which you've got the dimensions of the upstairs bedrooms on. One of the rooms is going to be a box room, and like Councillor Perkins was saying, if it is a box room with no adjustments to it, then it's probably going to be quite small because these are small terrace houses.
No, I think all the sizes are as given. It's a single bed. I believe it'd be the way these are organised is a single bed and allowance for a wardrobe in these rooms.
So we've got no actual proper drawings of the property.
Well, I believe these are accurate drawings submitted. I believe they would have gone to the building control as well, is it? And licensing?
The plan that you can see there, appreciate you perhaps can't necessarily see them in the detail you want. I could try and enlarge it.
No, I can zoom in on mine.
But they are, well, there's 2 aspects. There's scale, but also there's, you can perhaps see the lines on the internals that is giving us measurements as well, written measurements. So obviously with the benefit of those measurements and scale drawings, we then inspect the property as part of our evaluation to check that all appears to line up and is accurate.
Sorry, we haven't done the inspection yet.
Yes, oh yeah, because obviously...
Sorry, so you've been on site and measured the rooms then, is that what you're saying?
We have inspected all the rooms, so hopefully you can see what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So that's, like I say, this is one of the rear bedrooms, one of the front bedrooms, the second rear bedroom, and the second front bedroom, all of which, from our perspective, line up with the measurements and the layout of the plans that we've been asked to consider, but also very much indicate single occupancy per room is suitable and appropriate.
It's just whenever you see something that's like so close to the minimum requirement, to me that's sort of an alarm bell straight off the bat. And my question, and it's a very yes or no answer I want, is have the rooms actually been measured by somebody other than the applicant?
No, we haven't taken a physical tape measure to the rooms. But these photographs you're seeing are not the applicants, they are photographs, because we've been in the property. So if there's anything that looks clearly off about the plans, then we would take a tape measure literally to them. But these appeared to be correct.
My primary concern is this is as you said earlier, the first HMO in these houses.
Yeah.
And I correct me if you think I'm wrong, but once one's been done, one's been flipped, which is what this has been purchased for. It's been purchased to flip. Then other people are going to do the same thing. And if this is the first one, I think we should sort of dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure we are spot on this property.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Councillor. I mean, the square meterage is a guide. We've had this discussion before, as you know. Personally, I prefer the more hands-on, if you like, actually going and seeing it. Does it feel right? Does it feel adequate? And there's a couple of things here. So obviously the property is currently being refurbished. It's not run down. There's money being spent on it. It's got access to outdoor space. It's got a couple of bathrooms and all the bedrooms, appreciating that they are single occupancy. Small bedrooms have outlook, natural light, natural ventilation. So in terms of standards and seeing it in person, if you like, that is for us the primary consideration, and we considered it acceptable.
I'm sorry, I just don't like the term "it feels okay." It's like it has to be okay. It has to be correct.
The plans show all the bedrooms meet the required standards. They're the basis upon which we're considering the application. And the site inspection, as I say, didn't flag any areas of concern in terms of accuracy of drawings. If we're not happy, then we have to clearly say what is wrong. You know, what is wrong with the rooms that we're seeing either on plan or in the photographs. So I was hoping that by obviously showing you both the plans and the photographs that we have taken, that you would obviously see that the rooms are acceptable, albeit for single occupancy. But if you have concerns, then I suppose you'd need to tell us what the concerns are.
My concern is that room looks small. That's my concern. I would like to know the physical, real dimensions of those rooms, because you can see in there. Obviously, the radiator is going to go below the window, which is quite normal. The bed in the wardrobe, it just looks like a tiny box room. That's my concern. And if it's within the guidelines, and we're comfortable and happy that everything, all the boxes are ticked and everything is correct and above and as it should be, then fine. And it just looks very, very small from that picture. And as soon as you start putting things into a room, as you know, you look at a room and think, oh, this looks okay. As soon as you try and stick something in there, all of a sudden, the space is eaten up very, very quickly. So
you asking the officers when they visit to actually take the measurement of the room,
well, if the
to
room
check
is
and confirm they do match the drawings? That's what you're getting at, isn't it?
That's my challenge. For something which looks as tight as that, then yes, that would be my. If we're on about a centimetre or a few millimetres in difference in what the recommendation is.
So, as I said before as well, don't just, the drawings are not drawn up and just come to planning. I believe they go to the building control. Is that correct?
HMO licensing will see these as well. I suppose I understand what the councillor is suggesting, and as I say, there are cases where we do literally get a measuring tool out to double check. We didn't feel it was necessary in this case pursuant to our site visit. And the other point I would make, I suppose, is you'd need to think yourselves as a planning committee. Let's say, for example, this particular room that we're looking at on the screen now was 6.5 square metres. Would that be so substantial a concern to you as to refuse permission? So, you know, because we'd have to identify harm, and officers having been to site and considered the plans, consider this acceptable. And of course, also conscious that the existing and proposed plans on the upper level aren't changing. So, you know, this HMO is not proposing to change the configuration that currently exists at first floor level.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's a problem, but that as a room for a small child, you would probably, it's very different as a room for an infant as it is for an adult.
Noted, yeah.
With all their associated belongings and everything else, particularly. Look, my concern is the size of the room, and if the officers are saying that they're happy with everything and there's nothing wrong with the rooms, then that's what you're saying.
Yeah. The plans show exactly as we've put in the officer report, and that it complies with the minimum standards or exceeds the minimum standards. And our site visit, as I say, so we have been in all the rooms. We considered it to be acceptable. I'm not suggesting for one moment that the rooms are large, because they clearly aren't. But we've considered it on the basis of all the material matters that we should consider it on. But members clearly can take a different view on that, but it would need to have some robust basis, I suppose, in terms of the harm.
Yeah, I'll stop there. There's a few other hands which have cropped up.
Right, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cox, you had your hand up there.
In terms of refuse, do I understand it that there's no condition relating to refuse in this application, the recommendation? No. So we're assuming that the residents will do what everybody else does in a sort of domestic property, and that is put the bin out the front and keep the recycling in the back. But I mean, I accept that you've told us that there are no recorded, apparently, reports of complaints about the management of rubbish. But with respect, I mean, if anybody wants the addresses from me, if you just walk up some streets in Newport, it's patently obvious that there are houses which appear to be predominantly HMOs which do not manage the rubbish. It's quite clear that the mix of rubbish you can see in the bins and the bags is such that the council won't take it away, and it piles up, and that is undeniable an issue. So I suppose what I'm trying to get at is that I know for a fact that when somebody applies to housing for an HMO certificate, they actually have to sign to say that the rubbish will be managed in line with the council procedures. So I suppose what I'm getting at is who does enforce it at the end of the day? If they decide to pile all the rubbish up in the front on the street, I'm assuming that's not a breach of the planning consent. So that's somebody else's, presumably, issue. Because I know it's not business of maybe this committee, but it needs to be somebody's issue somewhere, because it clearly is a problem.
No, I appreciate the concern members raised, and you've raised it before on other HMO applications. I do get it. If, for example, put it this way, I feel fairly confident on this one that the wheelie bin will go outside the front door. Okay, I know they're showing space through the back, but I think in reality, like all the other neighbours, they'll have the wheelie bin by the front door, and they may have the recycling boxes in the backyard because there's space for it. If there's a situation where waste is consistently being abused, or the waste storage or processing is being abused by any property, that could be a dwelling or a HMO, in this case, I would assume highways would have something to say about it because it would be affecting the public footpath, but also waste. And in relation to the waste colleagues, or sorry, the complaints reference I made earlier, that is subject to a specific question we raised on what is the level of complaints directly linked. Appreciate what you've said, and that is what they've told us. There are no complaints recorded directly linked with HMOs, and obviously I've got the email from them to confirm that. But as a 4-bed house and a 4-bed HMO, that's also relevant, same waste receptacles, same potential occupancy levels. So, you know, we've borne all that in mind. If we considered there was genuinely some evidence to suggest that waste was going to be problematic, then it could potentially be a reason to refuse planning permission. But here, there is no such evidence.
I accept that. No, I accept that. And that, I suppose the difference is normal householders don't have to sign an agreement to manage the waste, whereas an HMO licence holder actually is signed to say that. It just seems to me reasonable that if they don't do that, somebody enforces it. I know it's not. That's not planning. That's not a planning issue. I accept that.
Licensing, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ropley, I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the box room, the smallest room of the house. Okay. Can you run me through the actual size and the projected size? So what I want to know, Joanne, is the minimum size that we accept. So there is a minimum size, and what the actual size of that room is.
Okay, so the minimum sizing is actually set out in licensing guidance, not planning guidance. But of course, it makes sense for us to, you know, to think about that when we're looking at HMOs, obviously, and we do. So in our report, we've given you the licensing minimum standards on page 68. And we've also given you some details about the sizes of both the communal rooms and the bedrooms. And we've confirmed the smallest bedroom is 6.52 square metres. So appreciate very close to the licensing minimum requirement.
So the licensing minimum is 6.5?
6.51 square metres. And based on the plans before us and the written measurements we've been given, the smallest room is, in this case, is 6.52 square metres.
I just struggle with putting, as has been mentioned, we have been down these roads before. We have spoken about this. We have, and had a very good detailed discussion with Mr. Ferguson last month around enforcement, etc. Because, you know, I know you say you're going to limit it to one person. You could get two in there, and then you're going to go through enforcement and everything else. And I do understand that. I'm actually I'm not convinced that we should be even putting an adult in there. And I think 4 is too much for this application. I just think that we have to make a stance on this. And as elected members, we have, we are the moral compass of what people are expecting us to do, not the legal compass or a licensing legislation that's been put in place. We're the moral compass, and the moral compass is saying that room does no longer fit or serve the needs of the community in such a way, because it is blatantly too small. And as a committee, we should be thinking what the public want, and maybe we need to just make a stance again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harvey, I believe you had your hand up. Yes?
I did. I was going to take it down because it's just to touch on the same as what Gavin have said and Councillor Routley. When measuring these rooms, instead of, I believe and I guess, can we get more accurate measurements? Because I know, as being in the trade, I could make that room bigger than what it actually is by measuring the room. So instead of going from wall to wall, if you went from wall to door threshold, you can add an extra inch or 2 inches on the room. So we can say it's looking the right size when actually it could be an inch or 2 inches under what the actual size could be. So it all depends on who takes the measurements. The measurements should be from wall to wall, not from wall to threshold. I got a funny shaped living room. When I order a carpet for the living room, I get a lot of waste because I got a bay and a double door in the middle. So if you're going by square meters, that's not actual size of the room. That's just actual size of what you need to fit in that room. So it's saying, looking at it, we're all looking at it and saying it's looking small, and the opposite looking at it and saying, well, it looks fine. So the easiest way out of it is to measure the room more accurately. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Coming out to Councillor Watkins.
My question has been answered, Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, no? Oh, okay then. I think that's... oh, Councillor Horton, have you got your hand back up?
Yeah, I did. I just posted in the group chat the sales material off Rightmove. That's the reason why I challenge what's been written on the paper, because it varies greatly from what the sale information shows. If you have a look in the chat box, I just took a screen grab of the sale information, and you can see the dimensions are quite different. So I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be awkward. I'm just it's like was mentioned earlier. We're here to sort of to challenge what's presented to us, and ultimately that's what I'm doing.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. You're taking a cautious approach, I suppose, is the way of putting it. I suppose what I just want to understand is the measurements the be all and end all for you, or are you looking at this photograph, which is the situation, it is the room, and looking at that and saying it doesn't really matter what measurements you tell us it is, it's not acceptable. So I suppose we need to be clear about that. Well, if the measurement...
Can I just jump in with that one?
Yeah.
The only reason I say that, because from what the Rightmove drawing shows, and let's be honest, an estate agent is probably going to egg it a little bit. that gives a size of 3.51 metres, which is 2 square metres smaller than what we're saying our minimum recommendation is. That's the reason. That's my challenge. My challenge is who's right, because we're saying that they've supplied information to us, to you guys, and then we're getting this contradicting information, which has come from the sale of the property. I'm just a little bit confused as to which one is correct and which one we should be believing.
Completely understand what you're saying, Councillor, and there is work undergoing at the property at the moment that may well have changed what you're seeing on Rightmove. But I suppose the question I'm asking is, looking at the photograph before you now, do you consider the room too small, irrespective of the measurements we may take if we go back out? That's what I suppose I want to understand. Because if you're looking at the room and think that is just too small for an adult, then the measurements become a little bit academic, if you know what I mean. Of course, if you do want officers to go out and measure, it would need us to defer, which we can do. But it's pointless if you're looking at the photo and thinking that is too small. So that's all I'm really trying to get to the bottom of, Chair.
Let's make an assumption. Let's make an assumption that the room is 1.5 metres across, which is what the Rightmove drawing is showing. And if that's the case, you'd argue what's a bed 900 across. So where that wood is on the floor, that's probably going to be where a single bed is going to be protruding out to. So if we're going to make assumptions about a picture that's in front of us, and we assume that is where a single bed is going to be, then yes, I would say that room would be too small for an adult to be living in.
And then you have to go to refuse it, up to them. But then, if you're saying it's too small, you've got the option now of refusal.
Yes, I know.
So this is now where we're going to get at you. So you don't want to defer, I'm just saying, you'd like to make a vote on the application?
No, I didn't say that, yeah. My
or
challenge,
would you like to propose a deferral for...
My challenge is, and always has been in what I'm saying, is there's contradicting information about the sizes of these rooms. Now, I'm not happy, as a committee member, being asked to vote on things and putting us in the public domain and asking us to make decisions on things. I'm not happy with conflicting information.
Chair, if you just want me to come in on that point. So I totally accept what it shows on Rightmove, but the fact of the matter is the application that we've got before us shows a different configuration of those two front rooms, and we've got the photographs to show that we've been into the property, and the photographs that we've got match.
All along you've been saying that
Okay, no, so could you let the officer finish?
So,
sorry, Chair.
The photographs that we've got match the plans that we've got submitted. Joanne's confirmed that we haven't taken a tape measure to measure it measures those exact dimensions. However, from our inspection, we're confirming that we believe that the dimensions to be accurate. So I appreciate what it shows on Rightmove, but the application we've got shows a different configuration, and that's what we need to be considering as part of this application.
Thank you.
So there has been this.
Chair, I'm getting confused. How can it be a different configuration if nothing upstairs has been altered? How? If that could be explained to me, nothing upstairs has been altered. How can it be a different configuration?
As far as we can tell, there has been a slight, it's not significant, there has been a slight change. That wall you can see, we believe on the right-hand side of the photo in front of you now, has been adjusted. Why? I don't know. Maybe to meet the requirements, who knows? But that room is suggesting a difference in the alignment of the internal wall compared to the right move photos. It's not significant, but it is suggesting there's been a slight adjustment in the alignment of that wall.
Can I just ask one thing and then I'll shut up? Sorry, I'm genuine. I'm not trying to be difficult. I guess the whole point of us is the challenge was put in front of us. Otherwise, there's just no point in us doing this exercise. But can you just bring up the drawing that you have, please? And I just want to look at the dimensions against what's presented on Rightmove and what you have as being presented to you guys, please. Then I'll stop talking. I promise. Yeah, it does look like there's been a change. Would that need to be in the planning application? I don't know. I'm just asking that question, and I'll stop talking then. So my question is, yes, from the drawings that I've got in front of me, it does look like the wall has been moved.
Yeah.
Would that need to be part of the planning application, or is that because it doesn't really matter about that?
No. The internal wall at the upper front has been moved. It was moved when we visited. It's already been done. It's works in the past that would not have required planning permission. Undoubtedly, probably in the recent past, bearing in mind your reference to Rightmove, but nonetheless works that would not in themselves have required planning permission. So the existing plan is showing us what we are seeing on the photographs.
And I accept that, and I'll stop talking. So,
okay.
Yeah, can you see where I was coming from? There was a disparity between two bits of information, and there was that element where you said it's been stated that there have been no changes to the upstairs layout, but there has been, which is where the confusion has come from. Thank you. No, I'm done now. I'm done. I'm happy now. Sorry.
Right. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harvey, you've got your hand up.
Yes,
Chair. About this room.
It is and it isn't. Can I suggest we defer it until we get the correct measurements? Because you're asking us to vote on something that we're not all entirely happy with. I know I'm not happy with it. So can we defer this until we get the correct measurements of the rooms?
Okay.
Sorry, can I jump in there and just say one final thing? Tim, I'm happy with what I'm seeing now. I don't know if that's relevant to what you're saying. There has been some changes upstairs, and I'm happy with what I'm seeing. I don't know if that's relevant to your point. That's all I was going to say.
So just Councillor Harvey's asked for a deferment, but now everybody's happy with the plans, with the proposal.
No, I'm not happy. I'm still not. I'm still not content. There was a question put by the officer.
There's been a proposal to defer this application until the measurements have been taken to.
Sorry, Chair. My concerns are if we let this go through and it's undersized, as was said in the beginning, every other one will have to go through now. We won't have an option to say, no, you can't put that through because the bedroom's undersized. We have rules to stick to, the same as to pass it or defer it or to reject it. We've got to stick by those rules. So I'm going to stick with the rules. So if that room is undersized, then in my opinion, that HMO shouldn't go through until it's rectified. I'm not saying stop the HMO, I'm saying let's get everything in place, because otherwise we'll be setting a precedence for future HMOs, and that's my concern.
Okay. I know every application is based on its own individual merits. In respect of Tracy?
Thanks, Chair. So as the Chair says, you would be, in principle, granting planning permission for development which meets the minimum size standards. So on the basis of the information that's been presented to us, we are able to grant consent. I understand concerns about it being so marginal. Are the plans actually accurate? And officers are happy to defer and go and measure the site, the room size, to ensure that those plans are accurate. If members looking at the photographs we presented feel that doesn't look quite right. All I would add, though, is obviously planning is only one of a number of different consents that exist for HMOs, including licensing. So if the rooms do fall below the required standard, then clearly that's something for licensing to also consider.
Okay, so we've had a recommendation now to defer this application, to let officers to remeasure the room, make sure they comply with the drawings they've put before them. So could I have a vote, please? Proposal, seconder?
Would they bring that back,
seconder?
Chair?
So, Councillor Wrightley, you're seconding the... Yeah, okay. So we've got a proposer and a seconder.
So it gets brought back to this committee?
Oh, will we bring it back to committee? Well,
yes.
Again, there's always options in there. So you could either defer for officers to confirm that the sizes are correct and we proceed on the basis of the officer's recommendation. So you'd effectively be giving me delegated powers to determine it, subject to that room size being right. Or you could say you want to defer the application to bring back to the next committee and we can confirm if that room size is as per the submitted plans.
okay, so what would you like? Defer with and allow the officers to check the room, and if it does apply, the officers will go with their recommendations to grant. Is that?
No.
You're happy for that?
Bring it back to this committee. I'm still not quite sure.
Bring it back to committee if the measurements are wrong.
No, bring it back to the committee anyway.
Well,
can I just say, I'm happy if the measurements measure up, then I would put it in the officer's hands. I can't see a reason for it being brought back to committee if the rooms are up to standard.
Exactly.
If they're under standard, then yes, bring it back to committee. But if the rooms are up to standard, I would leave it down to the officer's discretion to say yes, they're happy with the size of the rooms.
Can I I'll second Tim's statement.
And if the measurements are correct for delegated authority to be given to Tracy, this motion put and seconded by Councillor Cox.
Yes.
So no vote on that motion.
right, so we now got the, by Councillor Cox has seconded the motion, so we'll take a vote upon... On the fact it's been measured, and it'll, if it's correct, it'll go to the officer's authority, delegated authority to pass. Okay? All those, just vote on that then. Yes? Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, how many got? 6. Councillor Wrightley, you got a vote? Against? Or 4? Are you against, are you? Councillor, can you hear you?
Yes, sorry, Chair, I had to turn my mic on, and you know what it's like, the cursor doesn't want to go there. I'm against that, but
okay, but it's been carried now by the vote that officers will return to the property, remeasure the room, and if it matches up with the existing drawings, the delegated powers are them to grant it. Okay? Okay, thank you, that's all agreed now. Right, Moving on.
Being disagreed, Chair, what happens if it's not at the stand?
Well, if
It's
not,
refused?
yeah, we'd be brought back. Yes.
Yeah, just to clarify, if it's obviously smaller than we're showing on the plans, then we'll bring it back.
Okay. Right, thank you all. Just as a note, the appeal decisions are on page 73 for your information only, to have a read at your leisure. Right, thank you all for tuning up at today's plan.